Hello, good morning. I'm going to begin a new class on media globalization. This is, of course, in the series of lectures, last few lectures that I had done on the concept of globalization, and I had also touched upon the topic of Americanization in that series. So, here I am specifically talking about media globalization. So, this is please consider this lecture as a part of that series of lecture that I am doing, and I hope to finish the globalization segment with these lectures. Okay, so let us begin. Mohammadi in 1997 had argued that media globalization can be constitutive of three basic categories. Now, what did he actually mean by those three categories? He talked about the concept of culture and commodification. The second was distribution of information by conglomerates, and by conglomerates here I mean transnational corporations, media corporations to be precise. And the third one, challenges faced by developing countries in the process. Now, these three categories very succinctly captures the whole basic concept of the idea of what constitutes media globalization, or as one might put it, also international communication today. While the first of the category is talking about the concept of capitalism, actually, when I talk about commodification and how culture, capitalism are the important constituent of the idea of media or communication itself. The second is how the information flow happens and how the information is constitutive of different forms of media, and how conglomerates have a say in how they would want to distribute to this information throughout the world. So, let us say the distribution of messages in a third world country would be completely different than what you might presume in a Western European country. So, this is what constitutes this second category: how and when this distribution happens, in what manner, what are the factors that decide on the patterns of distribution. And the third specifically talks about a country such as ours, specifically talks about countries in the third world or in the global south, how these countries actually face this challenge of the flow of information and images and media messages in a constant manner, and how they cope up in this process. What are the challenges they face in this process? How do they cope up? How do they resist? And this forms this third category that is mentioned by Mohammadi. While if you look at these three categories, then you will realize something, that the idea of media globalization is then inherently dependent on the idea of media conglomerates or media transnational companies. It is directly impacted by the idea of technological innovation or technological prowess of the Western European and American countries, and thus the flow of information that happens, of course, is affected by this idea, but there is another important variable in this argument. Now, this argument is the idea of the media systems or press systems. Now, this is a very old idea. This idea has been there from the 1950s. Siebert and a few of his colleagues got together, and what they described was the three system of press systems based on the type of government that exists in the countries. So, their idea of the political establishment, the political philosophy of nations having an impact upon the media system was what they talked about. So they identified three different forms of political countries based on which the press or the media in those countries differed. So the first one is the liberal democracies, as we understand that is modern democracies, democratic societies where you have a far more free flow of information and press systems. You have the Soviet totalitarianism, which talks about the way in which the state has a control over many of the communist countries actually follow this way of political philosophy. And of course the third one is the authoritarianism, where you see the fascist countries which are under dictatorial rules have followed this, where the press is directly under the control or in fact banned, or in fact there is a lot of sanctions on the press. So these three kind of political philosophies contribute greatly to the kind of press systems that is there in these countries. Now Siebert et al.'s classification of political philosophy of countries determines the way in which how each one of these countries regulate media, receive media messages, and how they allow or disallow or sanction global media conglomerates as well. Now talking about globalization separately, we actually have seen in our last classes that globalization draws on the theories of Americanization, as has been always pointed out already in our last classes. It draws on the theories of capitalism, which forms the bedrock of globalization today, westernization, postmodernity, etc. And some of these theories actually contribute to the idea of globalization. Wherein in case of media globalization refers to the reach of transnational corporations. You can also call them multinational corporations, and media conglomerates have more and more shifted to the idea of being transnational entities. We see the prowess of let's say Rupert Murdoch's empire, the media empire, of how he grew the Star, and then he went to Fox, and all of these media entities now covered almost a major portion of the world. You look at how Google, a modern digital media company, has come to occupy our lives. So look at Disney and look at such other examples. So the global media globalization today refers to the reach of such transnational corporations. It talks about media globalization, talks about interconnectedness of the local economies, how these local economies are free and they allow for the space to global economies to come in. So local economies, the connectivity of local economies is very important to the success of globalization in today's world. Globalization thrives on capitalism, but it is facilitated by new technologies and of course consumer ideologies. So this is the bedrock. Consumer ideology is the bedrock of capitalism, how consumers attract globalization, how consumer ideology is the driving force behind the economy of the world today. So new technologies have driven capitalism today, and media globalization has helped itself on the basis of the spread of technology. As media globalization has increased in its prowess, we have seen that a new system, and we have talked about it in the last chapter as well, a new system of centers and peripheries have emerged. How have these new centers emerged? Because along with the concept of globalization, we have seen increasing development and in the arenas of science, technology and productivity. And as productivity, consumption and science and technologies have proceeded forwards, and thus have newer areas, centers have emerged. So as much as that the centers and the peripheries, the concepts no longer are valid today, because this media globalization has given up on these ideas of the center, because it's about an interconnected world, it's about an interconnected economy, it's no longer a singular economy. So there has, after this initial thought process, I would like to throw to you an idea that there has always been this concept of the Eurocentric, Anglocentric bias of globalization, that there has been this argument that the English speaking world has had globalization in a much more rapid pace, has had globalization in a pace which has because of its prowess of English, and probably a country such as India, which where a large number of population speaks English today, you would understand that globalization has thus proceeded in a far more faster pace. So it has become a routine, universal observation that media in English speaking countries have advanced more than and that is why you will see that there is an Anglocentric bias towards the concept of globalization. It is now important that as we have now negated the concept of the center and the periphery, and thus then it is important in the concept of globalization to understand the fact that it is not necessary to understand media globalization in terms of the nation state, in terms of nation boundaries. We don't need to be as Siebert and all. Siebert's argument was about the press systems based on the political philosophies. We no longer actually, if you look at it carefully, have to be worried much about political philosophies, because the analysis of globalization today need not be nation based. And why is that? Because we have already negated the concept of the center and the periphery. So what happens is, so what should we be more concerned about? We should be more concerned about the nodes of interconnectivity and interdependence. So the globalization today is a matrix. Globalization today is almost like the nodes of internet. So one node leads to several other nodes. So we have to be really concerned about these nodes of interconnectivity that connects us, and through which we are interdependent. So one nation state is not at all powerful, because it is tied up in a matrix of interconnectivity with other nations, other societies, other regions of the world. So this negation of the nation state has started to become a far more common factor in the articulation of media globalization. We will see, because media globalization starts to negate this concept, this political idea of the nation state, and that is also dangerous in some ways. So we have to come back to it again. Now Troilo, a French thinker, gives us two images of globalization. When I say two images of globalization, it means two types of globalization, two alarms of globalization, two ways in which we can interact with globalization. Number one is globalization results in cultural homogeneity across the globe. Now this is a very simplistic kind of an idea which we have also looked at before. And media globalization actually plays a very important role in this idea. So it talks about cultural homogeneity. So concentration of economic power of mixed media and non-media corporations that are responsible for global production and distribution of media hardware and software. So this concept of media globalization has brought about these fears of cultural homogeneity. Cultural homogeneity is an idea that has arose from these ideas of mixed media, through media messages, corporations that were responsible, because global productions have been happening around the world and these are distributed across the globe. So this if we consider these as softwares, so media production houses produce, let's say Hollywood films are produced at a certain place, but they are homogeneously distributed across the globe, resulting in fears of cultural homogeneity. So this is the first image that Troilo gives us of globalization, which is a very valid point and which the fear of which we come across from time to time. This is something which is this is something we have seen in various societies, the fear of globalization. The second view regarding globalization is the process of cultural appropriation, how people take what is relevant and they are interested in what is relevant to them, and they don't bother about what is not relevant to them, and orient or adapt it to their own local needs. So this propensity to the propensity to receive messages in a discerning manner, the propensity to receive media messages in a far more critical manner by audiences is something which initially was not thought about by media theories. So media globalization, this view of media globalization talks about how people orient these messages to their own needs and they receive the messages in this manner. So this view of globalization actually gives us a far more human side to the idea of globalization. Of course, there are a lot of critics to these ideas too. Media globalization, if you talk about in the developing countries, was marked by the arrival of satellite television. And satellite television, if you understand, came to India, for example, in the early part of the 1990s when the Gulf War was happening, and this almost was like the advent of modernity to the third world country, to the underdeveloped world. I would continue with the lecture in the next session.